Eric, otherwise, when was the first time you ever discovered Discord?
I think I've been on for a while, but kind of the first time that I really got into Discord was joining crypto. I mean, it's something, it's used for so many different groups of people, but I was
Right,
never 24/7 until I joined Web3.
right. And what was your experience like? Were you completely intimidated on, what this is and it can look confusing?
It's taken a little while to get used to it, that's for sure. I think a lot of the work that y'all are doing trying to simplify onboarding, very important. It's the hardest part of Discord is the fact that people tend to use it for knowledge management as opposed to just, you know, in the moment communication. Whereas I
Right.
feel that it's great to be immersed in the flow of conversation with people around you who are passionate about a similar subject. But
Yeah.
then someone has this wonderful, incredible point that they wanted to make on a call, and it just, you lose it. You lose it immediately. That was one of the biggest problems for me joining Discord.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like most of the people who are joining even DAOs have a very similar experience where they just feel like they're really lost. And even if someone's super new on Discord, they can just feel really lost at the same time. So I feel like simplifying the process is really going to bring a lot of amazing people in the space. I feel like we have a bunch of people join us, so we can get started. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Eric, so much for doing this Discord space with us. Super, super, super excited to learn from your experience and the projects you're currently involved with. So I'll give a quick intro about Eric, and then we'll just bombard you with some questions. Eric was one of the core parts of the Constitution DAOs. And if you guys don't know what the Constitution DAO was, it was really when the proper hype for DAOs started. It was a group of people attempting to buy the US Constitution DAO, and less than in 72 hours, they ended up broke a record for raising $46 million. And it was just phenomenal. So Eric, I would actually love for you to talk about the experience. How do you even get started in that journey initially, and what did that experience look like?
Absolutely. It was an incredible 7 days time from, so I guess I initially got started with Constitution DAO when a friend of mine sent me a text that said, "Hey man, I think we're going to buy the Constitution." And I was like, "Okay, you're crazy. Go to sleep. It's like midnight. We'll talk in the morning. Go to sleep." So woke up in the morning and he comes to me and says, "Eric, I need your help. There's some incredible people on this Discord right now. Overnight, we're at 200 folks. A Twitter meme is starting to spread, getting absolutely crazy. Can you please just come in and help me manage a little bit?" So, okay, yeah, whatever. I'll take off a Friday. We'll see what happens. And from there, it took off. To your point, I think in the span of 7 days, 3 days with the live payment platform, we raised almost $50 million. By the end of it, the Discord had 30,000 members, 30,000
Yeah.
very active members.
Yeah.
The core team of 30 people was functioning completely fluidly as a fluid leadership team, quite frankly. And we were able to transition tasks back and forth between anyone on the team with complete trust and autonomy. It was an amazing experience. We ended up losing the bid for the Constitution, despite the money that we'd raised,
Right.
which is sad. You do something like that, you do always want to win, but
Definitely.
that's just kind of a part of the story.
That's insane. How did that turn into such a huge thing? Why do you think so many people were interested? Was it the outrageous claim of actually buying the piece of the US Constitution? What led to 30,000 members on Discord?
So I think it's something that we've seen over and over again in crypto. It's kind of a community mission alignment. And in the space that I'm in right now, so after Constitution DAO, I jumped into the very earliest days of Decentralized Science. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's a movement trying to decentralize a lot of the process behind science, a lot of the meta science, but also performing science itself, trying to decentralize funding. It's trying to decentralize data access. And it's been a similar story for both of these different groups, whether it's Constitution DAO or the larger DeSci community. There's just enthusiasm. There's an understanding that there's possibility. And that whenever people hear the mission, they immediately go, yeah, I want to be a part of this. This sounds incredible.
Yeah.
So I think that that was a huge part of it. I will say with Constitution DAO, it was a little bit more about meme, whereas with Decentralized Science, it's a little bit more about experience. But ultimately, it's finding people with that mission community fit.
That's amazing. It's amazing what, a mission can drive people to do. It's phenomenal what you guys built. I can't imagine being in that space. I would love for you to talk more about DeSci. So Eric is an operations lead at DeSci. It is a place which is creating a network effect and is gonna revolutionize the scientific community. It's bringing scientists, their research, and their research together in a decentralized manner where people who are, say, aspiring scientists can learn and contribute. And I think it's insane. So I would love, Eric, for you to elaborate more on what that story looks like.
Absolutely. It's an amazing mission, something that I personally am very passionate about. So currently, system of science that we have right now is broken. Data is kept behind paywalls. It's rot. The incentives behind science are more about sensational headlines than they are about performing quality research. And it's a problem that has repeated over and over again throughout the course of. So in decentralized science, we offer solutions to a lot of these problems. And it's been the same kind of energy and mentality over a little bit longer of a time span in a little bit more sustainable of a way than Constitution DAO. So I think that that has been really exciting to see and to be a part of. With respect to decentralized science, the team that I'm on is building a lot of the back-end infrastructure for trying to make scientific research possible in Web3. So it's creating comprehensive research objects where it's no longer just a PDF that houses a piece of information. It's a lot of the underlying information as well, the code, the data, the PowerPoints, the videos that all go into comprising a piece of knowledge. I think it's absolutely incredible. So I'm happy to talk about both. And it's actually very interesting to see some of the similarities and difference between Constitution DAO and decentralized science. But either way you slice it, they're both amazing groups to be a part of.
That's awesome. I love the mission behind it. How are you guys executing this in a decentralized manner? I would love for you to dive deeper into that.
Absolutely. So it's been amazing to watch a larger community and ecosystem form around decentralized science. The biggest thing for me in terms of how this is running in a decentralized fashion is people have autonomy. Everyone has a certain amount of free time that they can give, and they give it to something that they're passionate about. Anyone can stand up a DAO. Anyone can release a token. Anyone can create a protocol if they have the development skills to be able to do it. Ultimately, it's about sending the message out. So making sure that we have the proper PR being circulated around where the right people can actually hear the mission. And then from there, we have a large Telegram group that kind of serves as a central hub for hundreds of different projects where people are on there having discussions about the underlying processes of science. And it links to quite a few different resources that people can use to kind of distribute out to different individual projects. So my group is more around the infrastructure behind science and some of the publication methodologies, but there are groups all across the spectrum. There are some people doing identity and access management, some people doing Web3 specific research, some people doing biotech. It's just whatever you're interested in. So it's giving people those pathways and those avenues to contribute.
That's amazing. And you mentioned that you guys are not a DAO exactly. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of progressive decentralization personally. I think DAOs are amazing. They will be one of the main organizational structures of the future. But DAOs have their flaws at this point. They're still young. There are a lot of questions that haven't necessarily been answered in the space of DAOs.
Yeah.
If I'm a core contributor and this is my full-time job, I'm living in the US and I get into a car crash, I probably don't have health insurance through that DAO because there are decentralized health insurance providers, but it's not at a level of robust where it can be dependable by an everyday person. If I am the owner of a DAO, there are liability questions that need to be brought in. And this is one of the things we saw with Constitution DAO as we were trying to do KYC with Sotheby's. So we had 30,000 people on a Discord. We're talking to this massive behemoth of the Web2 auction world. And one of the things that they told us was that we were going to have to KYC 30,000 people on the Discord, anyone who contributed money. And we had a weekend to do it. And our answer was, no, we can't do that. That's impossible.
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing in that setting was creating an LLC with 2 core contributors' names that were on it. Those were the only 2 people that had to be KYC'd. Those were also the 2 people who had complete and total liability if something went wrong. There was $50 million in a multi-sig in a juice box contract. If something happened to that money, those 2 people would have been in jail for a very, very long time. Now, ultimately, we ended up purchasing through a nonprofit and were able to get some great crypto lawyers on board who helped us finagle the legal structures there. But some of these questions are workers' rights, taxation, compensation, insurance, just don't exist in a DAO as of today. So for now, building the back end of science, we want to make sure that we're building on a solid foundation, and DAOs just have a little bit of growth to do before they're there.
Right. You've had such an experience in DAOs. I'd love to know your feedback on how do you think DAOs can improve like user experience. So many people are interested, they want to be part of building that future, but they still feel intimidated and confused and lost. How do you think people can make that better?
Absolutely. To me, the most important function of a DAO is knowledge management. So you think about the structure of decentralized work and the fact that anyone can come in and come out of a DAO at any given time. Onboarding and offboarding are immediately linked together in that sense, because to onboard someone, you have to have proper offboarding procedures for someone who leaves. But someone leaving probably just drops it. Like they've got something else going on in their life, family, school, work, whatever it is. They don't have the time to do proper offboarding and documentation. Making sure that knowledge management is an inherent and ingrained part of anything that a DAO does is absolutely critical for the ability to onboard someone. Because ultimately, whenever I come on to a Discord, the very first question I have is, okay, what do you do? Okay, well, I figured that out. It's in the info channel. Next question is, what can I do? That's a much more difficult question to answer, especially whenever you think about trying to operationalize a DAO in a scope that's larger than just simple bounty. It's one thing to say, okay, please go retweet this post. Yeah, that one's totally doable. But if you want to do any kind of larger project management that spans across a preset limit of time with a preset amount of capital, preset deliverables that have to come out at the end, that is significantly harder to handle churn in human capital, I guess would be a good way to put it. I would say that's one of the hardest pain points in onboarding DAOs is that knowledge management. And a large portion of the work that I think y'all are doing with onboarding tools integrates closely with it. It's making sure that people are directed to the right resources and that those resources have the right information. Making sure they understand that this knowledge management is critical. Here's the link. This is the first thing we're showing you, and this is part of why we're showing it to you.
Yeah.
So I think that is or has the potential to be a huge point in DAOs.
Thank you. And what would you say are some of the pain points that DAOs are really facing in their tooling system? I know you mentioned onboarding, but what else would you think?
What are some of the pain points that DAOs are really facing in their tooling system? I would say it's a lack of a good knowledge management platform, quite frankly. This is where my mind keeps coming back to. There's Notion, there's Roam, both of those kind of work, kind of exist. You can use project management systems to track, but there's no good tooling that an early stage DAO can use to store resources that doesn't immediately become crowded or scattered or whatever it actually is. I see people commenting Jira and Confluence can kind of work, but it depends on how good people are about actually using their cards. Confluence can be solid, but it may be something where you have to actually purchase the software, and a lot of DAOs are going to be running for free at the moment.
Right.
Probably should open up the chat so that I can see these questions coming in as they're flowing.
Yes, please. Since I'm screen recording, so I'll not be able to access the chat, but please feel free to answer any of the community's questions.
Yeah, so a couple other questions that have popped up since then. Were the two people selected through consensus mechanism? We didn't really have time, and it would have gotten into a much, much larger vote with 30,000 people weighing in on that. Also, if you get 30,000 people who are like KYCing on their own, you're asking them to dig into someone's background to try and find dirt. Nobody wants 30,000 people digging into their background to try and find dirt. Yeah. We picked two people who we trusted, who were solid, like contributing members of the core team who we knew through personal experience, at least expected, did not have that negative background. No, we did not do that through consensus.
Right. Do we have any other questions from the community?
Do you think DAOs would be open to use a pay-per-usage pages/storage? So maybe, but I'm going to throw a different wrinkle on that. Most DAOs are dealing with the fact that startup capital is sparse. They maybe have 10 grand to run with, and it's from one of the core contributors' savings accounts kind of thing, because they believe in what's happening. They have to be wildly judicious with how they actually spend that capital, and oftentimes it's not going to go on knowledge management platform. But an interesting thing that has kind of started to come up in the space of Web3 is DAO tokens. Exactly. Yeah, you're a step ahead of me here on the chat. If someone were to be able to pay in DAO tokens, maybe, because that is essentially the startup capital for the DAO. It's not someone's actual money, it's the tokens that they have. I could see a situation where someone would be willing to do that, maybe.
That's awesome. And Eric, I would love to ask you, what's your why about being in the crypto space? Why not in like just AI or machine learning and stuff like that? Why crypto?
I think it's the most incredible technology in the world. I think the ability to create and design governance and coordination mechanisms is one of the cores of society. And we have the chance to experiment on that on a daily basis. I think some of the work that my team is doing right now around open access scientific research and enabling scientific learning to be globally accessible by anyone who wants it has untold potential effects. Like, it could be amazing. You look at what happened with COVID and the fact that there was a mandate in the US that people had to share information, had to share data. Any time that we have faced a global crisis in the past, it has taken decades to solve. We got a vaccine for COVID in a month, quite frankly. Yeah. I think the potential of blockchain for enabling some of this human collaboration and governance over existing systems applied to concepts like scientific research is earth-shattering, quite frankly.
Yeah.
We could do a lot of good.
Definitely. What would you say is your perspective on people having a little bit of a negative connotation on the DAOs or crypto space when they hear about scams or, like just random things like that? Like, what would your perspective on that be?
I think it's fair and it's warranted. There are a lot of scams. There are a lot of rugs. And it can be a little ridiculous at times. So I would say anyone coming into the space of crypto should be aware of those things, and it's not a bad thing that they are. That being said, keep an open mind. There are some incredible things happening. Some of the work that's being done on base infrastructure, around DeFi, around refi, these communities are incredible. So yeah, I would say that that's my take. We need to be aware of the perception of crypto. And another tack on to this is kind of the fact that we focus too much on crypto as an underlying technology in Web3. We evangelize blockchain. And that's kind of our thing. I mean, I get it. That's not necessarily bad. But ultimately, for an end user, nobody really cares that it's running on blockchain. That's not something that most people want to see or hear about, in the same way that they don't care if an application is running on, AWS or a cloud server in someone's basement. They just want it to run. So I would like to see crypto and Web3 in general focus less on the fact that they are blockchain and more on the fact that they can perform services to the general public better and more efficiently.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Do we have, I'm seeing comments from the community, anything that you'd like to answer?
There's some decentralized communities you look out for based on the work they're doing. I love Talent DAO is a great decentralized community. A lot of their work around, decentralized work is fantastic. I am a huge fan of Obscientia. I think the guy who's leading it is a brilliant human being. Obviously, the DeSci Labs product community, can't say enough good things about the work that we're doing there. SCURF, the Smart Contract Research Forum, is great. And the work they're doing around decentralized research on Web3 is incredible. So let me jump to the next one, very interesting point, not positioning DeSci. Okay, cool. One of the successes of Constitution DAO was would you like to list a few takeaways for other DAOs to replicate the similar rally of people behind their mission? Yeah, so just to read out the question, one of the successes of Constitution DAO was to create a global awareness around DAO's missions. Would you like to list a few key takeaways for other DAOs to replicate the similar rally of people behind their mission? I think one thing that was really successful in Constitution DAO was not taking themselves too seriously. We played the line memes really, really well. And that has a lot of power. So part of it is allowing people to joke and understanding that the internet doesn't always have to be so serious. I think that is amazing. I recently, it was a couple months ago, heard something called Packy's Law, which is coined by Packy McCormick. I'm a fan of it. It says that on the internet, the funniest possible outcome is the most likely. And there's some truth to that, not gonna lie. I think that it's kind of a valid point, to be honest. So embrace the memes, embrace the culture, think about that. I think that was one of the bigger takeaways for Constitution DAO. I think both for Constitution DAO and for DeSci, a huge takeaway is to focus on your mission, quite frankly. Make sure you have something that people can connect with, appreciate, and enjoy. That actually ties back to their daily life. It's about making sure that what you're doing is something that people care about in the first place. That would be another huge thing to get people rallied behind your mission is take your time, find the right mission. So hopefully that answers the question. Next one, hey, Eric, what are the industries that you see who can shift into DAO way of working without any major changes? Science, quite frankly. A large portion of scientific research is already done in the form of a consortium. So you think about it, DAOs are basically just online co-ops. It is an organizational structure that has existed in the past. We're just putting a fancy name on it and putting some technology behind it. To a certain extent, scientific research already functions in this manner. They just have, a level of bureaucracy on top. Most scientists in a specific field function in a decentralized manner. Your peers are going to be spread out globally across a variety of different institutions. So I would say that that's probably the best example that I've been able to see. Trying to tackle a lot of hierarchical structures in the corporate world is going to be significantly more difficult. So that would be my answer, is science as an industry is one of the best I've ever seen. Okay, next question. You mentioned that the ecosystem currently relies heavily on crypto, but in recent news, the Indian government is looking to completely prohibit the use of crypto in India. What will the future of DAOs be like if such a notion is actually? That is one that we're going to have to deal with globally. We've seen, I can't speak to India specifically, but I can talk about legislation in the US. And I know, especially up on Capitol Hill, it has not necessarily been friendly towards crypto and Web3. I do think that we're going to see larger crackdowns, not too distant future, especially given the crash and some of the regulation issues that have come around calls like Terra, for example. Crypto does need a little bit more regulation. That being said, it needs smart regulation. It doesn't need people to come in with the battle axe. It's something where pointed concepts applied in the right way by smart individuals can have a massive impact on allowing crypto to continue to innovate, which is what I think we ultimately want, is protection, minimal protection, but protection in a way that doesn't impede innovation itself, that doesn't stop people from spinning up a DAO and trying something. But we also need to be very aware of how that comes across to one of my earlier points around some of the problems in DAOs being health insurance and knowledge management. One of the biggest ones that we don't talk about at this point is taxation. In 2017, the ICO boom happened. And our answer to Congress was, no, Mr. Congressman, not a security, it's a token. And then now the US Congress has started forming committees around looking at different securities that were released during the 2017 ICO boom. I think we're going to see a lot of the same thing with DAOs at taxes within the next 5 years, where anytime that you give a contributor $600, they are legally required to be a contract in the US. And that means tax implications. So we're going to start seeing more of that. What I really would love to see is smarter regulation that is internet native. I think that's what we actually need here. So sorry, I'm rambling here. What's up?
Thank you for such an insightful answer. And I know we're running out of time, and if you don't have any more questions from the community, I think one of the last things I'd really love to ask you is, what would be your advice for someone who's super new to the DAO space, but to really leverage that future of work and really understand better about it?
Get involved. Find something that you're passionate about and jump right in.
Right. Thank you so much, Eric, for such an insightful session. I think we do believe we have one question from Yash.
How do you see the recent crypto downfall affecting DAOs? How DAOs can prepare for such a volatile crypto phase? I think the recent downfall will have both a positive and a negative effect. There will be a little bit less capital in the space, but generally bear markets are the time where we come together and build. So it's less about financial speculation and way more about building technology that's useful to the world. So I think my best answer there would be to focus on product, to focus on community, and to continue to build. But Yeah, that's about the best I got. I do have a 3:30 that I have to run to, but
Oh, thank you, Eric, for such an insightful session. I was just like looking at the chat to see if we didn't miss anything. But any ending thoughts before we close this off?
this is wonderful. I think a lot of the work that y'all are doing with DAO onboarding is fantastic and is sorely needed. Thank you so much for having me and hosting me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of the week. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Bye so
Thanks,
much.
y'all.